Hello everyone, Daria here and welcome to episode number 65 of the Slow Russian Language Podcast. Today we're going to talk about propaganda in Russia because one of my listeners, it's Jeff Grossman, requested this topic. And I'm not a big fan of speaking about subjects like that because it's always very controversial and kind of dangerous to talk about it. But we'll try to be all professional here. As usual, first comes the short text in slow Russian, and today's one will be really short. And after that, we'll translate it sentence by sentence to English. Here we go. Пропаганда в России. Во-первых, что такое пропаганда? Сегодня многие путают пропаганду с политикой и культом личности. На самом деле пропаганда – это подача необъективной информации для влияния на общественное мнение. В России сегодня пропаганда играет важнейшую роль. Ежегодно правительство тратит миллионы долларов на поддержку средств массовой информации. That's it, and I'm very sorry about my terrible voice. I started okay, but now again it's all harsh. Because I've lost it, as usual in this period of the year. So forgive me and let's try to translate it. The first sentence was, first, what is propaganda? Во-первых, что такое пропаганда? We already talked about this во-первых, and it's the Russian way of saying first, second, third. It's во-первых, во-вторых, в-третьих, and so on. В-четвертых, в-пятых, в-шестых. But nobody says that. Usually it's the first three. So first, во-первых, что такое пропаганда? And it is interesting that in English we say, what is propaganda? But in Russian, we don't use this verb to be, быть. We don't say, что есть пропаганда. Actually, you can say it, but it just sounds not natural. And maybe it's okay to some bombastic speech, but certainly not in a normal conversation. In Russian, we say, что такое пропаганда? And it can be anything. For example, what is laser? Что такое лазер? Or what is communism? Что такое коммунизм? Or maybe what is Russia? Что такое Россия? So this construction, what is something, in Russian is что такое, and then you use any noun. The second sentence. Today, many people confuse propaganda with politics and the cult of personality. Сегодня многие путают пропаганду с политикой и культом личности. First, you hear that there was not the word people in the Russian version. I just said многие, many. So you can simply skip this and just say многие, and it means many people. Многие путают пропаганду с политикой. Many people confuse propaganda with politics. And it's true, many people think that propaganda is absolutely negative thing and that it's some tricks that government uses to fool everyone. And it's true today, but originally propaganda was just a way to spread the information. There was nothing negative about it. And there are very many different kinds of propaganda. It can even be advertisement, and it can be wartime propaganda, cartoons. So it's not necessarily about politics. But today, mostly, yes. So also in this sentence, we have the cult of personality, культ личности. And it's a very serious problem in Russia, because usually this expression, культ личности, is associated with Joseph Stalin, of course, because in the Soviet Union, the real cult of personality existed. Stalin was like a god for the Soviet people. It was something like what's going on in North Korea today. And everyone says that we are having the cult of Putin today. And it kind of true partially, because step by step, in those baby steps, we are moving to that point. We already have his portraits everywhere, in every kindergarten and school, and we have songs about him. And when he comes into a room, everybody stands up clapping and yelling. Most of them are fake people there, of course. So they try to present Putin like this huge superhero. And on television, non-stop, they say how amazing he is, no matter what he does. So kind of cult of personality. Okay then, actually, or in fact, propaganda is a presentation of the not objective information to influence the public opinion. На самом деле, пропаганда – это подача необъективной информации для влияния на общественное мнение. So, actually, or in fact, in Russian is на самом деле. So, actually, propaganda is a presentation of the not objective information. Подача необъективной информации. Presentation of the not objective information. So in Russian it's необъективный. For example, not objective opinion. Необъективное мнение. Or some not objective data. Необъективные данные. And again, it's very, very controversial, because when it comes to some event, especially in history, there simply cannot be some one opinion, one point of view, and it's very difficult to stay objective when you try to judge some event in history. In my postgraduate studies, I researched propaganda of the beginning of the 20th century in Russia, mostly during the Russo-Japanese War, and it's just amazing to observe how information was represented for Russians and for Japanese. So it was one event, for example, some battle, and Russians said that they won, Japanese said that they won, and they presented facts and photos and posters, but completely opposite about the very same event. And it happens all the time, especially today, with all those sources of information and with all those ways to influence people. It's very dangerous to stay indifferent to what's going on. Okay, then, to influence the public opinion. Влиять на общественное мнение. So, public opinion is общественное мнение. And the adjective общественный comes from the noun общество, society. So it's the opinion in the society. Общественное мнение. Well, simply what people think, what most people think. And that's why propaganda exists, to manipulate this opinion, to make people think in a certain way about this or that event. And in today's Russia, propaganda plays a very important role. В России сегодня пропаганда играет важнейшую роль. Играть роль means to play a role, but of course it's not literally. It means just to be important. Играть важную роль means that propaganda is important in today's Russia. And no wonder if you think about the events that happened a couple of years ago in Ukraine and in Syria and our relationships with America, Russia couldn't survive without propaganda. And these past several years, it's just going wild. It's going crazy. I stopped watching any television about 2 years ago because it's just impossible. Every time I turned it on, my ears and my eyes started to bleed because of what I saw and heard there. For 2 years, there was no news about Russia at all. It was just Ukraine and the States. Ukraine and the States all day long. And of course, from the Russian point of view, everybody is our enemy, and Russia is the last normal country in the world, and everybody hates us because we are so strong, and we are the only country who can oppose the United States, and it's been like that for centuries. And it's so funny to see the same words, the same line from 100 years ago. In my dissertation, I also studied the images of America and Britain and France as the Japanese allies in that war. And again, all Russian mass media was about how terrible America is, how terrible Europe is. They support Japan just to destroy Russia, and they just want us weak, and all that stuff. It's just like non-stop through our history. And they never mentioned that actually, guys, you were trying to invade China and put your war base there. But who cares? Russia is a saint, as usual, and everybody else is bad. But again, it's just so controversial. I hate speaking about these topics with other people, especially who are not historians, because usually it all ends up being aggressive and, nothing good in it. So, the next sentence. Every year, the government spends millions of dollars to support the news media. Ежегодно правительство тратит миллионы долларов на поддержку средств массовой информации. Средства массовой информации is mass media, and actually in Russian we have an abbreviation for that. It's СМИ, S-M-I, СМИ, средства массовой информации, mass media. And every year the government spends millions to support the news media. Every year means ежегодно, or каждый год, every year. For example, every year I celebrate my birthday in this restaurant. Ежегодно я отмечаю день рождения в этом ресторане. Or we travel to Europe every year. Мы ездим в Европу ежегодно. And here the government spends millions of dollars. Ежегодно правительство тратит миллионы долларов. Actually, there was a research and some rating a couple of years ago, and Russia was on the first place in how much we spend on propaganda. Millions and millions of dollars. And actually, we don't have any independent channels in Russia at all. There was one channel, it was called Дождь, the rain, but they made everything to stop it. So, no independent journalism anymore. And trust me, I know how it works because both of my parents are journalists, and unfortunately, it's a terrible time for them. The most expensive channel today is Russia Today. I'm sure you're familiar with this. And our government spends an just insanely huge sum of money on this channel. I don't remember the number, but it's just crazy how expensive it is. And after that, they say, no, we are objective. We don't give any fake information. But every time I watch them, I'm just facepalm. It's just funny sometimes how openly they lie. And another biggest fake channel in Russia is so-called first channel, первый канал. It's almost impossible to watch news there because it's 100% propaganda. The biggest scandal was about that story, how Ukrainian soldiers crucified some 3-year-old boy on the bus stop. And it's just so ridiculous. They found some crazy woman who told this story, and she was crying and giving the horrible details about how those monsters did that. And of course, some part of our society thought that it's just nonsense. So people started to research, and they found this woman, and she confessed that it's a 100% lie and fake, and they just asked her to tell this story. And there was a big scandal how this first channel lied about something like that. And the funniest thing is that they never even apologized. So it all turned out to be some bad joke in the end. And what they showed about this whole war in Ukraine, it's crazy. And podcast is not the best place to speak about these things because it's just too much information. And it's not a historical, not a political podcast. It's about the language, actually, so it's not a perfect subject. But yes, our mass media lies in most disgusting way. And of course, let's not be naive and think that it only exists in Russia. For example, when I watched CNN for a couple of times, I was shocked. I thought we were bad with our propaganda. But America is not far away from Russia because American propaganda is super funny too. So each country has something like that, and it's normal. It's how it's always has been. And it's very naive to think that ever in our history existed some perfect time where some independent information existed. No, and no. Trust me, I'm a specialist in propaganda. I spent years and years researching propaganda in Russia, in Europe, and in America, so it's always been like that. And the only thing we can do is to analyze, to think about what we are watching, what we are reading, because behind every piece of information there is some person. So if you are feeling that someone's trying to manipulate you, that someone's trying to make you feel emotional rather than rational, try to find out who did this, why they did this, what their purpose was, what else they maybe wrote or recorded, I don't know. So who are these people who make this stuff and who show it to you? And what is their purpose? And analyzing this kind of information critically is the first step to protect yourself from propaganda. Unfortunately, most of the people just blindly believe what they're hearing from television. And it's very, very sad. Especially after what happened with Crimea and with Ukraine. Even my friends and relatives were very aggressive and belligerent towards Ukraine after this whole propaganda wave. It's terrible. So let's all try to be sensible and trying to be critical to everything we see and hear around us. And actually that's it for today, because it was a very short text. Let me finally read it one more time very quickly, faster than the first time, and try to see how you understand it. Here we go. Во-первых, что такое пропаганда? Сегодня многие путают пропаганду с политикой и культом личности. На самом деле пропаганда – это подача необъективной информации для влияния на общественное мнение. В России сегодня пропаганда играет важнейшую роль. Ежегодно правительство тратит миллионы долларов на поддержку средств массовой информации. And that's it. I know it's not the best episode and there was not too much interesting vocabulary, but that's what we have for today. Sorry again about my voice. I hope next week it will be better. And for today, thank you very much for listening. And I hope to see you in the next episode of the Slow Russian Language Podcast. Bye-bye!